and experience, as well as the support of all the other African countries, so that Angola can also undertake a presidency that will be at the level of our expectations, and that we can also add our efforts in for the achievement of the development goals of our countries, together with the achievement of Agenda 2063 in all our efforts in building the Africa that we want. My thanks are also addressed to all the African countries, but more especially Southern region, for the trust entrusted to us in order to lead in 2025 the African Union, at a time when our continent is faced with major challenges related to peace and security, which are a blockage to many initiatives and actions that we want to undertake for the development of our nations. As you all know, it is the first time that Angola is assuming this major responsibility of leading the destiny of our continent in the coming 12 months. But we are going to look attentively to the problems of Africa, and we are going to contribute with our experience to finding solutions to peace and security, and for the implementation by member states of our economic policies, social policies, to promote progress and development of our continent. This is very important for us. The fact that we are assuming the chairship of the African Union in 2025, at the time we are also celebrating 50 years of our independence, national independence. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, throughout this conference, many issues will be discussed that are very important for our continent. The working framework of the African Union and the operationalization, the issue related to justice for African and people of African descendants to true reparations, which is the theme selected for this year, and a theme that Angola also chose for its chairship, which is related to the building infrastructure as a factor for development for Africa. These aspects, if combined, can allow us to build a communication channel and a channel of dialogue with our partners. It will make us understand the importance and the advantage of cooperating for a developed Africa that is industrialized, that is going to win over hunger, misery, and unemployment, and reducing the probability of armed conflict and illegal immigration. We will have the opportunity to address all these aspects in our fourth conference for development that is going to take place in Sevilla, in Spain, from 30th June to 4 July this year. And we believe this is a historical opportunity to redefine the rules of financing based on economic justice and inclusion, taking into account the commitments from previous conferences that were not fulfilled, especially the Monterey Consensus, Doha Declaration, and Addis Ababa Declaration. The fourth Sevilla Conference is going to address the challenges that we have faced in the funding for development and promoting the adoption of innovative solutions and more effective solutions, such as fiscal justice, debt relief, climate funding, reforms in financial and global institutions, and social inclusion. These are going to deserve our attention so that we can adopt a common position that can ensure the continent to reinforce its influence in the global governance and the reduction of the cost of the debt, and for a sustainable development of our continent. The achievement of these objectives is going to create synergies that are going to promote more trade, more cultural exchange, and technology and other aspects that are going to bring benefits for all the parts involved. We believe that in the objective that we aim for our countries, we include issues that are for priorities, especially in fundamental infrastructures, railways, roads, airports, and ports, power supply stations that are essential for the industrialization of our continent and to improve the living conditions of our people. During our presidency of the African Union that we are going to assume from today, we hope to work together with all the members of our institutions. We're hoping to launch a plan for together with our partners so that the African Union Commission can be able to establish the basis for infrastructure projects that are going to be undertaken in our continent. We would like to underline the contribution of Angola for the development of Africa, taking into account our superavit when it comes to energy supply, especially in this sector of energy. Given its strategic relevance that it have in the transportation of goods and in African trade between Africa and within Africa, taking into account the Lobito corridor and the Tanzanian railways that we believe are going to play a major role in connecting African countries and in promoting the trade that we want to achieve, especially under the AFCFTA. Taking into account what I've just said, I believe that we should come up with a well-defined strategy in order to yield the benefits. I believe that by integrating G20, it's essential in ensuring that Africa plays an active role in global decisions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the strategic lines of our presidency are aligned in general terms with the priority actions defined by our continent, especially under the acceleration of the implementation of the second 10-year implementation plan of the Agenda 2063, especially covering 2024-2034, centered in transportation infrastructure, connectivity, energy, natural resources, peace and security, agriculture, blue economy, continental integration, and African free trade area and strategic partnerships. In this framework, our major lines of our interventions of major importance is the issue of peace and security, because we believe this is one of the pillars for the materialization of the aspirations of our Agenda 2063 of the African Union, especially the program that aims at silencing the guns by 2030, by transforming Africa in a peaceful region, safe, with a promising future, with prosperity for all Africans, and in placing our continent in the development route. In the reports of our activities undertaken as a champion, AU champion for peace and reconciliation in Africa. I made a detailed presentation, the activities that I undertook in helping the achievement of peace in our continent, especially in the eastern region of the Democratic Republic of Congo. I will also present my vision on what I believe that is essential to be taken into account in the future in order to put an end to the conflicts in Africa and in order to address the challenge of unconstitutional change of government, terrorism, invasion, and occupation of neighboring countries. We also have major challenges related to natural disasters resulting from climate changes and Marburg, cholera, and other diseases that are affecting us, and call on us to unite our efforts in order to find collective solutions for their elimination. In this perspective, I believe that it's essential that the third conference on the oceans that is going to take place in France is an opportunity for us to address the main concerns of this topic and that are affecting our continent. With more than 30 coastal countries, our continent will have to protect maritime ecosystems and promote blue economy and undertake more actions against illegal fish, maritime pollution, and against climate changes, which are major challenges that we have to face together permanently. I would like to hope that this conference will contribute to reinforce our coastal resilience and building conditions to mobilize international funding for sustainable projects and the blue economy. Excellencies, this year and during the Angolan presidency, we are going to work in coordination with the African Union Commission to mobilize financial resources through the contributions of our member states in order to be able to have necessary resources for the realizations of projects and programs of continental level and reducing our dependencies for external funding. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are living a global landscape, a very challenging global landscape, especially with the challenge in our continent and in Eastern Europe and Middle East. Despite all that, we overcome these challenges and build the Africa that we dream of, contributing in the solution of the problems that are affecting our humanity. It's in this context that I believe that we should continue to act together so that the United Nations will be more inclusive and more aligned to the challenges and opportunities. And the reform of the United Nations should continue to be priority for our continent, and it is very important to reaffirm our commitment with the consensus of Ezuline and the Sirte Declaration of 2005 for 2 seats as permanent members with the right of veto and other privileges that are related to the seats. Excellencies, I would like to call on you, your best contribution, so that our presidents of our continental organization that we assume today can take part, can happen in a climate of understanding and the dynamics that is necessary in this long work that we together undertake for the transformation of Africa as a continent that rich and prosperous for its people. Allow me to address my vote of thanks to His Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed and the outgoing commissioners that had their mandates at the Commission for their excellent work throughout their mandates at the helm of our common house of Africa. I wish to the new coming Commission successes in their mandates and endeavors, and I appeal that the Pan-African spirit and the ideals of our founding fathers continue to lead the future of our continental organization. I would like to hereby accept to undertake the functions of the chair of the African Union, and that our tears today for having lost the African child, Sam Nyoma, will be transformed in strength that will help us achieve the challenge that are ahead of us. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in introducing the theme of the year, Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations, it is now with great honor that I welcome Her Excellency Dr. Monique Inzanza Baganwa, the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, who will share her introductory remarks. Your Excellency.
Thank you. Your Excellency, the Chairperson of the African Union, Your Majesties, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency and dear brother, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, allow me to stand on already established protocol. Over the past centuries, the voices of Africans and people of African descent have echoed in various quarters with a singular demand: justice. Justice for the millions who were forcibly, and justice for the generations that continue to face economic, social, and political disenfranchisement stemming from historical wrongs. As I draw my term in office as Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission to an end soon, a unique opportunity is offered to me and one of my teams, SIDO, to introduce to you the 2025 theme of the year, Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations. As we embark on this journey in 2025, we are guided by the words of the eminent Pan-Africanist Kwame Nkrumah, who declared, and I quote, "We face neither east nor west. We face forward." The African Union's Agenda 2063 envisions a continent that is integrated, prosperous, and driven by its own citizens, a continent that is peaceful. The strength of this Africa has always been in its unity and resilience. At this moment, we stand at the precipice of history, and together we shall pave the way for a more just and dignified future for Africa, the CARICOM, and Africa's global diaspora at large. Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, as I conclude, since I'm not the one to deliver the high-level message, we have two leaders who will do it in just a short. But let me take this opportunity to thank all our stakeholders who have journeyed with us. Thank you, Ghana, and our champion, President Mahama, for inspiring the African Union with this theme. I wish to thank you, my dear brother Musa Faki, for your leadership and support. But through you also acknowledge our teams who have worked hard around this theme of the year. Especially, I wish to recognize two ladies. Madam Coleman from your cabinet, Chairperson, and Angela from CEDAW. You did an amazing work. Special appreciation goes to Her Excellency Mia Amor Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados and Chair of the CARICOM Authority. You have traveled all the way from home to another home to join us in today's launch. May I now invite you, Your Excellency, to come to the podium and address this august assembly. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Your Excellencies, and may I start, Chairperson of the African Union, President of Angola, Your Excellency, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and our host, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, Your Excellency, outgoing Chairperson of the African Union and President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government of the African Union and First Ladies present, Your Excellency, the President of the Palestinian Authority, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellencies, former heads of state and heads of government of the African Union, distinguished delegates, ambassadors, and guests all. I stand here clothed in the spirit of the battles of Adwa, conscious that it was that battle within 24 hours that shook the confidence of the powers of Europe, but inspired the people of Africa and the children of the African diaspora that good would prevail over evil and light over darkness, but only in the context of our unity. I stand here conscious that it was that battle that forged the beginnings of Pan-Africanism that eventually led to the movement for independence and the destruction of the colonial powers to give us not full development and power, but the first steps of political independence. I stand here conscious and buffeted by the dreams and works of the great Pan-African pioneers, and conscious that as children of the Caribbean, we have long dreamt for the moment of unity with our brothers and sisters of Africa, a division that was secured by those whose success and survival depended on separation of us rather than on the ability for us to act as one common people. Our relationship, you can say, was embryonic. But regrettably, as long as it has been and as related as we have been, it has been sporadic. And it is up to us as the children of independent states to determine whether the history of separation shall be our future or whether the spirit of Adwa can be our inspiration to confront the challenges of a new world. Yes, I stand here as a daughter of Africa. I stand here equally as a proud Prime Minister of Barbados, a country which is the first landmass that you reach after you leave this great continent of Africa. A country which became a hub for the wrong reasons, but today I come to Ethiopia to share with you in the African Union that we can be a hub now for the right reasons between our two peoples. I stand here as the proud chairman of CARICOM, the Caribbean community, recognizing that as a member of the 6th region of Africa, we have come to reclaim our Atlantic destiny. We have come to ensure that the very futures of our people are different and will not once again be determined by a middleman who will ensure that the Middle Passage is one that sees our people at the bottom of the ocean's floor of the Atlantic or in the fields of the plantations of the Caribbean, but instead that it will be a future that sees our people, hears our people, feels our people, and that will determine in future that it is we who shall forge the manner in which we cooperate, integrate, and invest, rather than simply being victims of a past history. I stand here equally as the chair of the V20, 70 countries across the world that are climate vulnerable, 40% of whom come from this great continent of Africa, recognizing that it is only through unity that we can confront the existential crisis of our generation, that of the climate crisis. The Secretary General of the United Nations has already laid out, ably so, many of the iniquities that we continue to face in spite of political independence. It was His Majesty Haile Selassie who popularized and told us that there shall be no first-class or second-class citizens, words popularized by Bob Marley, learned by all of our people without appropriately recognizing the context in which he spoke and the mission which must be ours for generations until it is achieved. He told us that there would be war if there were first-class and second-class citizens. He told us that there would be war if the color of our skin was more significant than the color of our eyes. And we see here in the continent the continued descent into conflicts born out of ethnicity differences, born out of a mad grab for resources, not invariably for our own benefit, but for the benefit of others who seek to use our people as pawns in the determination of their own future. But we stand here as proud people, and we have enough among ourselves to know the difference between right and wrong, and to forge a future that is not for a few, but for the many. Indeed, as the world confronts the climate crisis, It is the poorest of the poor who remain the most vulnerable to floods and droughts and hurricanes. It is the poorest of the poor and soon to be the middle of the middle who will no longer be able to access insurance and therefore to be able to forge ahead with development if we do not make changes. We have examples of a partnership that have worked for us, not just from the spirit of Adwa and the conquest and the rise of the Pan-Africanist movement in our history, but within recent times. During the COVID-19 pandemic, it was the African Union, under the leadership then of President Ramaphosa, and with the assistance of Dr. Tedros of the WHO, that recognized that the Caribbean, which was being marginalized by denial of access to basic therapeutics, basic medical equipment, to vaccines, that we should not be left as pariahs on the global landscape, but that our brothers and sisters in Africa would bring us through the Africa Medical Supplies platform to be able to ensure that we could secure for our own people. It was with the solidarity of many of you in the African Union that the Bridgetown Initiative has been able to take root and to make a case for a more modern and a fairer system that allows us to be able to access finance and to be able to put in place measures that allow us to be able to pause our repayment of debt during the period of necessity for rebuilding after horrific climatic events. We have seen how partnership helps us. We do not need any more evidence. What is required of us is to lead the way to peace, to prosperity, and to justice. And the reparations which we call for the international community to be able to recognize, first and foremost, with that which we ask from each of our children. Say sorry. Say sorry. And mean it. And after you say sorry, recognize that the future of the world is not possible without the stability of Africa and its diaspora. For as long as hypocrisy and double standards remain, it will be impossible to secure stability and peace in any nation across the earth. The reparations that we call for, beyond sorry, must be for fair access and development and compensation, because we each started the journey of independence with a chronic deficit. A deficit of resources, a deficit of fairness, a deficit of opportunity. And it is up to us, many of us in the second and third generation of independence, to be able to frame out fairly in a mature conversation what those reparations must look like if we are to attain justice and to inspire the young people of this world that good must always prevail over evil. But it is not only the reparations that we ask from the international community, because we ourselves must repair the damage that was foisted on us. The notion that transit visas, begging for them, must be the lot of our people in order to move across this world cannot be something that gives us satisfaction. To go east and to go west, we are forced to go north. It is not right. And it is not beyond the heads of government and heads of state, the region, of the Caribbean community, and of the continent of Africa to determine that we must stop talking about, but simply do what is necessary to build the air bridges and sea bridges to guarantee that we control our destiny. I ask us to reflect on this because it is this simple act, apart from our music and our culture and our food, that will guarantee that it is not simply heads of government and heads of state that will meet in Accra or Bridgetown, but it is ordinary people who will be able to trade and to move from the closest point of Dakar to the closest point of Bridgetown, to be able to open up the opportunities that technically ought to be available not just simply through the Africa Free Trade Area or the CARICOM single market and economy, but through the combined opportunities provided by both. I ask us equally to recognize that in an era where AI is threatening to redefine what humanity can do and even if we can survive, that it is not ours to be the victims once again of technology as we were with gunpowder, but it is for us to help shape the future of the world, because more often than not it is Africa and its people who have brought the humanizing forces to bear on civilization. And if we are to be the cradle of civilization, then we are to be the protectors of people and planet, of humanity, as we go forward. And some watching on may say, how? And I say, how not? How not does a continent that has 40% of the world's minerals not be in charge of helping to secure the destiny and stability of the planet? How not does the numbers of our two communities, who constitute a third of the world's states, not act in singular purpose to forge the kind of world that we want, and to be able to ensure that the institutions that deny access to us, to hear our voices as reflective of the continent and of the small island developing states of the world, how do we not secure that admission, which is not only just, but a moral imperative if the world is to have stability in this 21st century? My friends, I ask you, how do we not secure this victory when 1 in every 5 and possibly 1 in every 4 persons on the planet will come from this continent and its diaspora? Those who lead today have a moral imperative, not just to our citizens in our own countries, but above all else, to unity. The spirit of Adwa demands of us that we recognize that even in the face of the greatest technology being foisted upon us, that we can rise and win if we act in unity. This has been a message not given by our generation alone, but by previous generations of African and Caribbean leaders. But we ask ourselves, why does it elude us? And the answer comes not from outside, but only from within. When I speak of the USA with affection, I do not only want to speak of that which is known in the Americas. I want to speak about that which ought to have been possible if the 1884 Berlin talks did not take place. The possibility of the United States of Africa, which is as diverse as India, which is as diverse as China in terms of ethnicity and language and religion, but which is entirely possible if we see not ourselves first, but we see the unity of ourselves together. This may be the cry of a naive and romantic daughter of Africa. But if that is the case, I prefer to die being a naive and romantic daughter of Africa than one who is cynical and one who is daunted by the actions and power of others. We know what it is to stand in unity with you to fight apartheid and to fight for the liberation of the peoples of Africa. For when President Castro stood to send people from his own country to Southern Africa to free your people, it was in my own country that the planes refueled, ensuring that that battle was possible. And when 100 years ago, almost, a Barbadian man and woman left our nation and left the United States to come here, Arnold and Mignon Ford, he wrote the anthem and lyrics of the anthem of the United Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, and his wife dared to establish a co-educational school here in Ethiopia, ensuring that boys and girls could receive education in a time and at a time when war was dominating the global landscape. They chose to see light rather than darkness. I ask us today in tangible terms that will allow our people to travel, that will allow us to pool our investments to ensure that the people of Africa not be denied the electricity that is so necessary as a platform for participation in the new world. I ask us not only to pool that investment, but to also ensure that we pool our voices, because there is too much division in this world today. There is too much war and there is too much conflict. And we know what precipitates and causes that. If we leave Addis Ababa with the commitment that the world is not going to be safe without a prosperous and stable Africa, then we understand what is the moral imperatives we must undertake in each of our countries to secure that unity of purpose and to secure ultimately the saving of the people and planet. I ask you today to recognize that, and I thank Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for agreeing that the first in-face summit of CARICOM and the African Union should take place here in Addis Ababa on the 7th of September of this year of our Lord. By that simple act, we build on the inaugural summit which took place virtually in 2021. But more importantly, we seek to regularize and to establish as a permanent point of interaction the unity of which I speak and call for. And I ask you as I leave this podium to recognize that we too in the Caribbean want to see you. Indeed, in my own country in Barbados, we will celebrate the Caribbean Festival of Arts, the 15th CariFesta, from August 22nd to August 31st. And we do so not only asking for those from Cuba and Bahamas in the north, to Venezuela, to Suriname and Guyana in the south, to Belize in the west and the Eastern Caribbean, to come together to express our commitment to each other creatively through food and fashion and music and dance and art and sculpture, and talk of philosophy, talk of religion, talk of who we are, talk of the future. I ask us to recognize that we celebrate this year our resilience, and that we do so not only asking the people of the Caribbean to come, but the people from whom we came here in Africa, in India, in China, and the continent to which we went, in particular in Central America and Latin America. This is our moment to show the world that we were not simply apostrophes to the history and the modern history of humanity, but that truly we are the ones who can level the playing field and to create the opportunities that will allow the world to see people, hear people, and feel people, and to value the planet and its biodiversity at the very time when it is greatest in crisis. Let us remove the scars of history and be firm craftsmen of our fate, recognizing that the only people who can stop us now are we but ourselves. We have to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery and to build the future that our people want of us, and to give them that pride that is theirs. And we must do so in the spirit and with the results of ADWA. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Prime Minister of Barbados, Chair of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, for a global call for the African Union theme of year 2025. It is my distinct honor to welcome now His Excellency John Mahama, the President of the Republic of Ghana, as the African Union leader on advancing the cause of justice and payment of reparations to Africans. Your Excellency.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Chairman, President of Angola, Your Excellency, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Your Excellency, Chairperson of the African Union, and in the interest of time, may I just proceed on established protocol and say, Your Excellencies, my colleague, heads of state, distinguished citizens. It's a privilege to address this historic launch of the African Union theme of the year 2025, and I quote, "Justice for Africans and the people of African descent through reparations," unquote. This moment marks a significant milestone in our collective pursuit of justice, equity, and the long overdue recognition of the historical injustices that continue to shape the lives of Africans and the people of African descent worldwide. At the 37th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of the African Union in February 2024, our heads of state and government made a landmark decision to dedicate the year 2025 to the cause of reparatory justice. This decision underscores our collective commitment to addressing the historical injustices and their lingering consequences that have impacted generations of Africans and people of African descent. It aligns with our broader struggle for liberation, unity, and socio-economic empowerment as enshrined in Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, a vision for an integrated, peaceful, and prosperous continent. Your Excellencies, the transatlantic slave trade was one of the most heinous crimes against humanity, spanning about 400 years and forcibly displacing more than 12.5 million Africans. It is estimated that at least 2 million of our compatriots perished during the Middle Passage alone. The legacy of this brutal system, along with colonialism, apartheid, genocide, and new colonial exploitation, have left deep and enduring scars on the fabric of our societies. Today, the descendants of enslaved Africans continue to face economic disparities, social inequality, systemic discrimination, and racial prejudices. Addressing these challenges require more than just acknowledging them. It demands action. The economic impact of colonialism on Africa has been profound. Historical estimates suggest that the continent lost trillions of dollars in both human and material resources due to colonial exploitation. The forced extraction of wealth, which included minerals, cash crops, and labor, deprived African nations of the capital and infrastructure necessary for sustainable development. Colonial policies intentionally stifled industrial growth, leading to a dependency on foreign economies that persists even till today. The systemic plundering of Africa's natural resources, coupled with the disruption of traditional governance structures, has resulted in lasting consequences, worsening poverty, underdevelopment, and inequality throughout the continent. In November 2023, Ghana hosted the Accra Reparations Conference, a historic gathering that brought together African heads of state, scholars, and representatives of the global African diaspora to advance the reparations movement. This conference reaffirmed the urgent need for comprehensive reparatory justice and laid the foundation for stronger advocacy and policy frameworks. It provided a platform for dialogue on the financial, cultural, and social restitution necessary to address the enduring effects of slavery and colonialism. The outcomes of this conference served as a guiding pillar for our collective efforts moving forward. The 2025 AU theme of the year is therefore a call to galvanize efforts towards reparatory justice. It is an appeal to ensure that the dignity, rights, and well-being of Africans and their descendants are fully restored. Reparations involves not only financial compensation, but also restitution, rehabilitation, and guarantees of non-repetition for the abuse of fellow human beings. It is also about truth-telling, historical accountability, and the restoration of agency to those who have been marginalized for centuries. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the call for reparations, while including, extends beyond financial redress to encompass addressing structural inequalities, ensuring educational and economic opportunities, reclaiming cultural heritage, and amplifying the voice of Africa and the diaspora communities on the global stage. Achieving justice requires multi-stakeholder collaboration. Today's pre-launch event serves as a crucial platform for concertedly rolling out constructive consultation, dialogue, and partnership. We welcome the participation of AU member states, regional economic communities, the global African diaspora, civil society organizations, academia, the private sector, and international partners in this transformative endeavor. The African Union Commission, in collaboration with key partners, have developed a concept note and revised the roadmap to guide the implementation of the reparations agenda. This initiative will further the aspirations of Agenda 2063, fostering an Africa that is self-reliant, just, and inclusive. Through this launch, we seek to, among other things, mobilize political will and commitment towards reparatory justice and racial healing, present and discuss the roadmap for implementing the 2025 theme of the year, foster partnerships among AU member states, diaspora communities, and like-minded international allies, engage stakeholders in resource mobilization efforts to support reparations initiatives across Africa, elevate awareness and advocacy to ensure sustained engagement beyond 2025, encourage dialogue and knowledge sharing among experts, policymakers, historians, and affected communities, and finally, to ensure an end to the culture of silence and denial on racism and colonialism. Your Excellency, the work ahead requires a unified voice, a clear strategy, and unyielding commitment. Today, we reaffirm our commitment to working together to develop policies and frameworks that will support reparations efforts across Africa and beyond. We must continue to advocate for stronger legal and institutional mechanisms at the national, regional, and international levels to ensure that reparatory justice for the historical trauma inflicted on global Africa is not just a conversation, but a reality. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, I wish to express Ghana's unwavering support for this critical initiative. Let us seize this moment with the determination it deserves as we work together towards a future that is fair, that is just, and equitable for all Africans and people of African descent, and by natural extension, the uplifting of all humanity. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Allow me now, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to move to the family photo while calling the rest of the respective delegates to remain in their seats. Remain in their seats, please, to ensure the smooth organization of the family photo. Allow me this time to call Excellencies and Honorable Heads of States and delegates in an organized manner to proceed to the photo session location. Allow me now to start by calling distinguished presidents from Liberia, Libya, Madagascar, and Malawi, please follow our protocol team to the family photo. There is only one door open for the family photo, which is gate number 5. Please, protocol team.
Well, what you're just witnessing is that the Assembly is taking a break after a photo session. You do know they sat all the way from 11:30 till now. They have conducted business